Well, it wasn't always easy, but Missouri won the border war. And I'll tell you this, in this series, a win is always a win.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. And this is going to be a little bit more of a relaxed program here today, going live here post-game. Don't have all my thoughts together, haven't done any rewatches or research. This is just going to be an immediate reaction here. And first of all, my immediate reaction was absolute relief, because going down 21-6, I mean, how tight did your collective sphincters get at that moment? I know mine did. I'll tell you that. I was pretty low energy for most of the game. Some of that had to do with sleep deprivation this week, without a doubt, but also, when Beau Pribula fumbled that ball, Kansas runs it into the end zone. Come on. All of your worst instincts as a Missouri fan were starting to creep into the back of your head. It's okay. It's just between you and me. You can be honest. But I'll tell you this, Beau Pribula, 39 attempts, 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Yes, that one fumble, and it was a costly one. No doubt about it. Could have cost Missouri the game under different circumstances. Well, I tell you, our new quarterback, Beau Pribula, looked pretty good to me. And Kansas, I think, did a solid job, especially of taking away Beau Pribula's running game. But again, Pribula was able to hurt the Jayhawks quite a bit through the air. I think that's really encouraging. And while Kansas, I think for the most game, remember, if you were listening to me leading up to this game, I was very curious to see how the Jayhawks defense was going to play this football game, because, well, you're going to make Pribula beat you with the air, or dare, or just really try to stop the run, or make Missouri just march the football. Well, it turned out they made Missouri march the football, and for the most part, Pribula and the Missouri offense were up to it. Now, on the negative side, the Missouri offensive line is still a work in progress. I'll definitely say that. And the pass protection had its moments that weren't great. I thought, frankly, the running game wasn't good enough. And that might sound strange if you look at the box score, because Jamal Roberts, 13 carries for 143 yards, Ahmad Hardy, 25 for 112. Well, those numbers are fantastic. The problem is that's a little bit misleading, because Missouri had the explosive plays. That first touchdown run by Ahmad Hardy was a thing of beauty. Of course, Jamal Roberts with the 60-plus, I believe, 63-yard touchdown run to seal the game for the Tigers, plus another big one that he popped at the end of the first half as well. So the explosive element was there for the Missouri halfbacks, but the efficiency wasn't. And that's where I will say, there was one moment in the game. Let me see if I can get the exact moment here. But there was a definite moment where I know that my dad, who I was with the game with, was saying, oh, I wanted Missouri to actually go for it on 4th down there. And this was before, well, the best drive by the Jayhawks in the second half. Missouri got off a great punt, by the way, pinned the Jayhawks inside their own 10-yard line. But that was by far the Jayhawks' best drive after going up 21-6. By the way, Jalen Daniels marched Kansas down the field, and we're sitting there now trailing in the ball game going, man, maybe we should have gone for that 4th down and won. The problem is, in my opinion, I think Missouri made the right call there. I really do, because, and this is not with the benefit of hindsight, I thought they did it. I thought that was the right call in the moment, quite simply because going back to that running game, the lack of efficiency, to me, it's not just about, well, hey, we want to be aggressive and try to make it on 4th down. And the math, the Excel spreadsheet says we should go for it here. To me, at that point in the game, especially if you're Missouri, you need to earn the right to go for it. And Missouri just simply was not good enough in most of those running plays. Again, 3 huge explosive runs, but too often there were 1st and 10s that were losing a yard or two, and the outside zone just wasn't quite getting going. Again, hit some huge plays with it. The efficiency needs to get better moving forward for Missouri. And by the way, moving forward, How about a running back controversy? Hey, we had a quarterback controversy all off season, but boy, Jamal Roberts has looked pretty good so far this season. I will say that. And I think at times Ahmad Hardy's looked really, really good. But I think like the Missouri running game in general, the offensive line, well, it's taking a little bit of time so far for that Missouri outside zone scheme to completely gel. Now, that isn't the worst thing in the world, and it frankly isn't surprising at all, because that is a type of run scheme that it's not just going forward and pushing your man forward. It's a little bit more complicated than that. So it's not surprising to me that, especially with a new group, the Tigers are still trying to figure it out, up front, because I just think you go back to 2023, hey, week 2, Missouri barely beats a very mediocre Middle Tennessee team with a very pedestrian offense. It wasn't as though Missouri its running game was destroying people then, and yet by the end of the season, you have Kirby Smart and Georgia going, wow, this Missouri team is physical, and they're running the ball down our throats, that type of thing. So I do think it will get better as the season goes along. How good it's going to get, well, a lot of that's going to determine how good Missouri's, or just how high Missouri's upside is in the future. I will say this, one thing offensively, not only is Beau Pribula playing well, but his receivers are helping him out a heck of a lot too. Kevin Coleman with a tremendous game today, showing that he's kind of exactly what I expected, quite honestly. I thought he was about as close to a one-for-one replacement as you were going to get for Luther Burden. And so far, 10 receptions, 126 yards in this ball game, including an absolutely clutch catch in the middle of the field that was pretty unbelievable that he managed to hold on to it. If he doesn't hold on to it, I'm not 100% sure how this game plays out. Not only that, Marquise Johnson, not a flashy stat game for him, but a guy who went down with an ankle injury in the game, ran off the field and got a huge ovation from the crowd and was just really, really into the game. I thought was playing his butt off. And Brett Norfleet, by the way, tremendous. Maybe I would say his best game as a Tiger. He had a really good game, I remember, a couple years ago against Arkansas at the end of the season, but this was a much more competitive ball game. And in a situation that Missouri really needed him, I think this is the Brett Norfleet we've been kind of waiting for. And hopefully, knock on wood, he continues to stay healthy, because his upside, I think, is really, really special. I'll tell you that. So, by the way, I said running back controversy. I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek there with Jamal Roberts and Ahmad Hardy. What I think we really have is a genuine split, because it seemed like Missouri was pretty determined to keep Ahmad Hardy for the most part. Again, I'm speaking broad strokes. But keeping Ahmad Hardy going with the outside zone stuff, when Missouri wanted to go a little bit more north and south, well, it felt like that was Jamal Roberts. And, of course, he's usually in there on his customary third down passing type of packages as well. So what I think here is we're going to get a much bigger split of carries than I think I would have anticipated here in the offseason, that is for sure. But, by the way, speaking of good receivers, Donovan Alubade with one of the best plays I've ever seen in the history of Missouri football. And guess what? He's 2 games into his career, so a lot more to get to on this here program. But I'll tell you this, if you're looking for a good-looking hat, look no further than the game cap. Because if you could go back in time and sit front row at your school's biggest rivalry game, well, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said hat. For me, it would be the game hat. And these aren't just hats, by the way. They're the same vintage styles fans wore back in the 80s and 90s. And guess what? They still go for the same price they did back then. When you use the code LOCKEDON, you will get this beautiful vintage hat for $16.99. By the way, I love that they're a little bit bigger, too. Somebody who wears about a 7 5/8 and a fitted hat, I like that their snapbacks are just a little bit bigger, so I don't have to get on the very last snap, that type of deal. So head to thegamecaps.com, grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design, and use code LOCKEDON for an exclusive discount, because legends wear the game. And by the way, also, you got to check out Gametime, because they're the best place to get tickets at the last minute, whether you're talking about Missouri, Louisiana, the Tigers against the Gamecocks, homecoming, Bama. I'm telling you, zone deals, kind of the way to go. Pick a section, Gametime picks the seats, you save big, take the guesswork out of buying football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. And also, just one more quickie here, but it's not going to be a quickie if you use Rugiet. Yeah, that's right, you heard me. You've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Well, Rugiet Ready's even better because it's ready and on average of about 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That is RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and use promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. And yes, I needed a little bit of a swig of water after all of that copy, but I think I needed maybe something a little bit stiffer after the end of that game, to be honest with you. Once again, I just felt like relief at the end of that thing after the way it started. I was hoping maybe Missouri could just blow the heck out of Kansas and we could laugh all the live long day to grandmother's house we go, but it just didn't quite play out that way. In fact, it reminded me a lot of the Boston College game last year, appropriately enough, because, well, I did a decent amount of time comparing Jalen Daniels to Tommy Castellanos. But importantly, I did say that Jalen Daniels is a better version of Tommy Castellanos. And that's not really a shot at Castellanos. Did you see Jalen Daniels? He was a pretty doggone good player, wasn't he, in that game? And again, the coaching by Lance Leopold, I have a lot of respect for what he does, even if I, well, don't respect the decision-making and the choices he's made in relation to where he's choosing to coach and spend his life these days. But obviously the guy can coach. Obviously Jalen Daniels is a good college quarterback. But I think ultimately Missouri, like I said, had the better roster, has the better team. So I was right about that. What was I wrong about? Well, the under, number one. Holy cow, that didn't even come close to happening. But again, again, it's a win. A win is a win, people. If you have stuff to complain about, well, so do I. The good news is it's a lot easier to do constructive criticism on film day when you actually pull off a victory over your arch rival. By the way, speaking of encouraging things, Donovan Olubade, just 3 catches for 29 yards, nothing that's going to make you go crazy. But on 4th down and 10, in a spot where Missouri was essentially forced to go for it on 4th down, because obviously Missouri got its first point after touchdown blocked, well, there wasn't a lot of reason to be incredibly confident in Robert Meyer from 47 yards. It would have been at this point, Missouri at the Jayhawk 30-yard line. I think even though Drinkwitz was obviously, his MO is not to go for it on 4th and 10 from the 30. Certainly with a healthy Blake Craig, that would have been a field goal attempt. But because of his current circumstances, well, he was basically forced to be aggressive there, I thought. And credit to Drinkwitz for being aggressive. And my goodness, Donovan Olubade made it pay off with one of the most impressive athletic catches I've seen really in the history of Missouri football. I don't think that's going that crazy to say that. I'm not saying it was a better catch than, for example, Luther Burden's one-hander at South Carolina last year. Just more of a clutch catch that Missouri absolutely had to have to stay in the game in that one, so I'll give you that. I'm just saying in terms of pure athleticism and still a 4th down, do or die, gotta have it kind of play, really impressive stuff. And who knows, Missouri ends up getting a field goal there. Unfortunately, just settles for a field goal. That was certainly disappointing, but still, What an unbelievable play by Alubade, a young man who very much looks the part of Missouri's fourth receiver right now. Heck, maybe he's even the number 3 wide receiver is a true freshman. I don't know. I'm not going to put much of a ceiling on that young man and his play at this point. By the way, I thought it was interesting that Eli Drinkwitz called an aggressive timeout with 2 left, by the way, 49 seconds left in the first half. I thought the one time, by the way, that this was a fairly aggressive version of Eli Drinkwitz, one time I thought he made the right call conservatively. Missouri trailing 18-21 the end of the first half. This was one of those explosive Jamal Roberts runs. Missouri backed up in its own territory that, well, changed the calculus and the calculation there for Drinkwitz and company. So suddenly the Tigers were rolling. Really, they got some breaks to get down to the point where they were down inside the 5-yard line. I know a lot of fans wanted the Tigers to go for it there on 4th down and be aggressive. I just thought that was the right move. To me, I said on Twitter, hey, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. In other words, Missouri was basically content to run out the clock there and go to halftime trailing by 3. So they pop a huge run. You know, maybe there was a penalty in there. Forgive me for not remembering the exact sequence. I can just remember thinking, wow, I feel pretty fortunate that Missouri is down here inside of the 5-yard line. This is the literal last play of the half, so you don't have the advantage under normal circumstances of going for it on 4th down there and going, well, if we don't get it, at least we give Kansas the ball in a bad spot. That was not going to be the case for Missouri, obviously, in that situation. They were going to go to halftime and then, by the way, receive the ball on the other end as well. I thought that was part of the calculation too. Hey, let's get a tie game, and by the way, we're going to receive here. Maybe we can go march it down, get another score, and obviously then take the lead. So I think that was the right move by Eli Drinkwitz. Said it in the moment at the time before it happened. So I certainly would have been thrilled if Missouri would have gone for it and gotten a touchdown. I wouldn't have cried one bit about it. But if I were Eli Drinkwitz, the point is I would not have looked a gift horse in the mouth there. I would have done the exact same thing. But that is just me. And by the way, give me 1 second here again just to take a little sip of water. And we're back here as, of course, I choke on my drink as well. Perfect timing on the live podcast to do exactly that. By the way, Joe Waljasper said 2 straight double-digit win seasons were nice, but today was Eli Drinkwitz's best day as Mizzou's head coach. Stayed aggressive in a tight game and got rewarded. Well said there, Joe, for sure. The former, by the way, 31 comments here on the live stream. Let's go ahead and stream. Let's go ahead and scroll through a few of them here. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. Let's do the singing while I look through the comments. I shut off the TV off 5 minutes after that. After what exactly? I don't know what that means. Let's go. Beat the Beakers is amazing. Hardy putting the ball on the floor, almost having me passed out, but Hardy, Roberts each having 100 yards. Huge. You have to believe that comeback was insane. Yes, it was. Boy, again, this was kind of a 2024 game a little bit, wasn't it, this comeback? Definitely was biting my nails, figuratively speaking. Norfleet will play at the next level. If he can stay healthy all this season, I think that's quite possible. My buddy watched the game with me, and he doesn't watch football. I told him Norfleet's hurdle was his staple. Yep, it certainly is. It's just great to see him healthy. It really is. That's my biggest thing. Drink livid at the unsportsmanlike foul after the interception. I understand his frustration, but that celebration was earned in my point of view. Probably true. Definitely didn't cost Missouri anything there, and what a play by Dalen Carnell. He was correct, by the way, to say, hey, review that thing. He got his foot down. Beautiful, beautiful play by Dalen Carnell. There's a guy I think is going to play at the next level, by the way, Dalen Carnell. Did y'all see that one-handed catch by Alubade? Of course we did. One of the best catches I've seen in the history of this program, I think. I think Meyer will be fine. Xavier Lloyd had a good 15-yard catch. Got to do better play calling and execution. Field goals can't be an option against tougher teams in the SEC. Field goals can't be an option. I think what you mean is field goals can't be shaky. Anyway, defense was clutch on that last sequence. Alex says, I like that they are going for it on fourth down when it helps when it works. Those fourth down conversions were huge. And yes, Eli Drinkwitz going a bit out of his comfort zone, and it certainly paid off. Those fourth downs, that's not his usual move, but you got to love it. All I got to say is, hey, there's going to be more to come this week here on Locked On Mizzou. This was obviously a much more casual podcast here. I wanted to do a live one here, halftime of Oklahoma and Michigan. So you know what? Since that game's about to start back up here, I'm going to let y'all go. I'll see you next time on, let's say, Monday morning. I'll see you Monday morning with an even deeper breakdown right here on Locked On Mizzou.